Guys, let me tell you the tale of a boy whose heart was warmer than coal and whose gaze shone brighter than the stars. His name was Tanjiro Kamado, a gentle, kind boy who lived peacefully with his family in the mountains. Tanjiro was the eldest child. His father had passed away years before, quietly, like the snow melting on the mountain. His mother, with loving hands and a tired but gentle face, raised her children. The Kamado family wasn't wealthy, but their life was simple. Tanjiro's work was to make charcoal and carry it down to the village to sell. Every morning, when the sun was still hidden behind the peaks, he would hoist the load of charcoal onto his back, sink his feet into the snow, and walk toward the village with his breath fogging in the cold air. Everyone loved him. He always arrived with a smile. The scent of smoke and charcoal mixed with his kindness and warmed the hearts of all. No one could have imagined that this simple mountain boy would one day take up a sword and hunt demons. One winter's day, Tanjiro sold his charcoal as usual and spent the night at an old man's house in the village. He worried that if he returned too late, wolves or strange creatures of the night might harm him in the mountains. The old man kindly said, "Tanjiro, the mountains are dangerous at night. Demons wander in the darkness." Tanjiro laughed and replied, "Demons? No, but all right, I'll stay here." But the next morning, as his feet crunched through the snow and he reached home, everything had changed. The door stood open. The smell of blood, a coldness sharper than the winter itself. Tanjiro rushed inside and saw his mother and younger brothers and sisters lifeless on the floor. No sound remained except the pounding of his heart. His tears froze on his face. He cried out, but the only answer was the silence of the mountains. Among them, only one still breathed, his little sister, Nezuko. Her breath was faint. Tanjiro lifted her onto his back and stumbled toward the village, falling into the snow, rising again, whispering through tears. "I'll save Nezuko, I'll save her." But something had changed inside her. When her eyes opened, they were no longer the gentle, loving eyes of his sister. They glowed crimson, like the flames of hell. Her teeth were sharp. She was no longer human. Nezuko had become a demon. At that very moment, a man appeared. Sword in hand, eyes cold and merciless, Giyu Tomioka, one of the Demon Slayer swordsmen. Seeing Nezuko attack Tanjiro, he drew his blade to strike her down. Tanjiro threw himself in front of her with bare hands, shouting, "Please, Nezuko is different. She's still human inside. I won't let her be taken away." Giyu thought to himself, "This boy, standing before my sword with nothing for the sake of a demon?" And then Nezuko, instead of attacking her brother, placed her body between Tanjiro and the sword, as if, deep inside, a piece of her humanity still remained. Giyu paused. Lowering his blade, he said, "If you want your sister to live, if you wish to fight demons, seek out my master. Seek out Sakonji Urokodaki." This was the beginning of the journey. Tanjiro carried Nezuko to the distant mountains, where they found Urokodaki, an old man wearing a tengu mask, whose very presence spoke of hardship and discipline. At first, Urokodaki was harsh. He doubted a simple boy could become a demon slayer. But when he saw Tanjiro's determination, his gentleness toward Nezuko, he finally accepted him as a student. Years passed in training, learning to breathe correctly, to sense enemies by smell, to run the steep slopes, to swing a blade until his hands blistered. Tanjiro fell again and again, but he never gave up. The memory of his family, the peaceful face of his sister, always helped him rise once more. On nights when he came home exhausted and wounded, he would see Nezuko sleeping quietly. Just the sight of her calm face was enough to ignite hope in his heart again. When Urokodaki believed Tanjiro was ready, he sent him to the final selection, a trial where dozens of youths like him had to survive 7 days in a mountain filled with demons. There, Tanjiro faced a monstrous demon who had killed many of Urokodaki's past students. The beast roared, "Another of Urokodaki's brats! I'll devour you all!" But Tanjiro fought with everything he had. He steadied his breath, smelled the air, earth, wind, blood, and in a decisive moment, struck with such force the mountain seemed to shake. He survived. That night, Tanjiro officially became a demon slayer. His black Nichiren blade gleamed in his hand, and Nezuko slept peacefully in the wooden box he carried upon his back. From that point on, Tanjiro's life was never the same. He traveled from town to town, village to village. Each time he faced demons who had once been human. Each time, his heart trembled, for he saw they too once had families, dreams, laughter. He fought them, but never with blind hatred. Always with compassion, always with sorrow, ending their torment with a heavy heart. Zenitsu, a cowardly but loyal boy who, despite all his fears, would draw his sword in the most crucial moments. Inosuke, a wild child wearing the head of a boar, who beneath the mask carried a pure and simple heart. They laughed together, fought together, trembled together, but never were alone. Through all his travels, one name flowed like poison: Muzan Kibutsuji, the very first demon, the King of Darkness. He was the one who had turned Nezuko, the one behind countless deaths and suffering. Tanjiro swore that one day he would find Muzan and end his reign for his family and for all humanity. On his path, Tanjiro faced the 12 Kazuki, Muzan's most powerful demons. Each carried a tragic story, a hidden wound. And in every battle, Tanjiro fought not just with his sword, but with his heart. Many times he came to the brink of death, but the scent of the wind, the memory of his mother's smile, the quiet gaze of Nezuko, these gave him strength to rise again. He learned the dance of the fire god, an art his father once performed on winter nights for the family. That dance became his greatest weapon. Years passed. The battles grew harder, the tears heavier. Friends were lost, sacrifices made, and finally, Tanjiro and his companions stood face to face with the greatest darkness they had ever known. What happened that night is a tale of blood and light, of despair and hope intertwined. But remember this: Tanjiro's journey was never just about fighting. It was about keeping the light of his heart alive in the midst of endless shadows. The end of his path brought both sweetness and sorrow. Sweet, because his struggles and pain were not in vain. Bitter, because the price for victory was heavy. Tanjiro's life shows us that even the simplest soul, with a heart full of love for family and faith in kindness, can stand against overwhelming darkness. That is the story of Tanjiro, the boy from the quiet mountains, who sold charcoal with a smile, who carried both sorrow and hope, and whose heart never let go of kindness.